Welcome to PsychicBent. My name is Carrie.
And I'm Kim. We are two sisters wanting to help other psychics learn and grow in their abilities and to help educate about spirits, angels, and everything psychic. Welcome back to PsychicBent, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the series that we did on healers and healing practices that we had going. I was really excited about doing that series, and I learned a whole lot about that. How about you, Carrie?
Oh, yes.
This episode, Carrie came up with a really interesting idea as a subject matter, and it just so happened that as she was coming up with the idea and suggested it, I had just discovered a podcast that actually was covering that topic pretty close to that time. So I feel that we were definitely meant to do this subject, and it is concerning near-death experiences and how it can affect our psychic abilities. Is that what you would say the subject is, Carrie, totally, or just near-death experiences?
Well, I was trying to find documented, because I had seen documentaries years ago on people who had been struck by lightning and how that had unlocked their clairvoyance, but I couldn't find it when I went to go look for it. I was very, because a lot of studies that I have come across said your empathy, which of course your empath abilities, are more heightened. So I couldn't. I can only talk about what I've seen in the past on documents. I wish I had so and so said this and did this, kind of thing. But near-death experience, for one thing, has always been interesting. So I'm not sure I really answered your question, Kim. I was just going to keep on talking.
You did. You were looking at it as from the aspect of the being struck by lightning and that creating better psychic abilities or opening up your psychic abilities. But whenever we go through an experience like a lightning strike, when you get struck by lightning, that is a near-death experience.
Yeah.
So it is easier to look at a near-death experience to expand it out from just a lightning strike to other times when there have been near-death experiences and how that affects us. So, you did answer my question. So,
okay. All right, good. I'm glad. It's been quite a crazy couple weeks for me. So hopefully I'm a little more, not so scatterpated for you.
You're fine. You've had quite the journey this past couple of weeks. So
yes, it has. It has been quite the journey. First of all, I just wanted to share. You see all these, encounters, and I'm sure you came across this, Kim, where everybody was talking how peaceful it was, and how some of the survivors didn't want to come back, and just different kind of scenarios, and what I don't understand, and maybe someone can answer the question for me, and I kind of think maybe I have an angle on it, but when I nearly drowned as a child, I saw horrible things. It was black. Keep in mind, I was like, 5?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw, it was, I had slid off a boat ramp, and it was flooded water, and we were swimming in it, and I slid off the side of the boat ramp, and I couldn't swim. And so, and I've never really talked about the whole experience before. So here we go, like so many decades later. But, I was running because I could feel my feet sliding in the earth. And I just kept sinking farther down, but I was actually running, and in my I guess my mind's eye, I was seeing skeletons. I was seeing things like that, which at a 5-year-old, that's frightening.
Yes, definitely.
But it was pitch black. It was frightening. And when Julie pulled me out by my hair, because I had long hair and that's all she could reach, I mean. I was very glad to get out of the water, but it was very frightening, and it was hard for me to process that experience. Now, I wasn't at the stage where I could, was actually going to need mouth-to-mouth resuscitation or anything like that, So, but why was it so frightening? Why was I seeing those things? And I honestly think that was probably my first clairvoyant experience.
Yeah.
Recently I've been thinking about it a lot, and I'm thinking, well, maybe there was someone who was deceased in that particular area.
Right.
And I could have been seeing their skeleton, because that would have been what was left.
Mm-hmm.
at 5, and and I'm looking, it was terrifying. And and it left such a mark on me that if the water is not, if I can't see the bottom, I'm not getting in the water. So
Right.
I get terrified going out on a lake. I'm okay now in
Hmm.
a boat, but I better have a life preserver on because I'm going down again. you know and I know how to swim. I know how to swim now, but that's not the point. It's that terror. And so, I mean, is that what you're thinking, Kim? That it was just that kind of opened my clairvoyant at that point?
I think that that was a moment where you did experience a near death experience and it opened up wider your clairvoyant activity, and you only being 5, not being able to process mentally what it is you were experiencing, seeing above, and that's above the fear you were experiencing of I'm underwater and I can't get up.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I
can't
mean?
get that. Yeah, and I was sinking. I was going down.
Right. You were sinking, going down, couldn't get back up. The Your clairvoyance then, I because I believe you were already having those, but this is what enhanced it. This is what really
Yes.
brought it out to the forefront. And you being a child didn't know what happened.
Right.
That's
And
what you were receiving. It was just that terror and the darkness that you saw beforehand. In my research, I've been finding that there have been people that in their near death experiences just experience darkness. That's
mhm.
it. That's all they see. There's no fear, there's nothing. There's just darkness. I think that that's they're not ready to open up to what they're we're going to be shown is what I think that is. They just weren't ready.
Well, like I said, I don't know. I don't. The only thing I can think of for the skeleton was that there was probably someone close by that was their body. You know what I'm saying? I could be wrong on that
Hmm. Right.
because our mom was very protective of what we watched and what we were exposed to, even up until junior high school.
Yes.
You know, she was very protective of. So I never really, other than Halloween decoration kind of stuff, never really was exposed to a skeleton.
I would agree with that. Yes, I would agree with
Yeah.
that.
So it's not like, I was watching movies and that was just something I picked up, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And see, with my personal experience with that being yours, mine happened younger, when I was
yes,
younger, I believe. I was maybe maybe 18 months, I think it was.
I think you're around 18 months.
Yeah, and mom put me down for a nap, and I ended up having convulsions, and ambulance came, CPR. I don't remember any of that. But however, I do remember, as far back as I can, that I have always had the deja vu, the dreams that have been really bizarre, walking in my sleep, talking in my sleep, all kinds of things like that since then. So I've never had a time where I wasn't experiencing these dream things that I experience now. Well, what we know are my communications with spirit and such, and my abilities that I didn't have a name for. So that has always been in my dreams, especially the deja vu. So mine was even younger that
Yes.
it opened up.
And didn't you have like a spiked a huge fever? It was like real high
It was a
fever,
huge, yeah,
and that's what caused the convulsions.
right. That's what
Yeah.
caused the convulsions. Yeah, it was a real. She put me to bed fine, and she heard the noises, which was me having convulsions, and it was due to a extremely high fever. I think she said it was like 104 or
Yeah,
something
104 is
like
what I
that. It was
remember.
very
Yeah.
high. Yeah, very,
Yeah.
very high. So,
Yes, that was your first ambulance ride.
yes, it was. I've only had 2 of those in my lifetime so far, knock on wood. But yeah, that was the first and the one I couldn't ever remember.
But and it's interesting because to have such, because near death experiences I don't think are really common,
I
but
think they're more common than what people
they're not
want to
talked about.
admit. Right, than what people want to admit. Yes.
Because like like if you had not a heart attack, 'cause a heart attack you're not to that stage, but if you have cardiac arrest, there seems to be a lot more of that near death experience.
I believe that any time What I think is anytime they have to perform CPR on you is a near-death experience.
Right, because your heart is
Your heart
stopped.
may be, it may have stopped or may be beating too fast. Something. There's something that is near death, whether, anytime there's CPR involved. So, especially.
So we have two out of. Did Julie have a near-death experience?
Julie's had many interesting experiences. But,
Yes.
um, well, I am not. I mean, I know in high school, that car accident, that was serious.
Right.
My memory is weak on that point. Earlier than that, I'm not recalling anything,
Right.
but I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I'm not remembering anything other than I know she was the one that had a lot of the strange illnesses. Besides you, you had that. You had, what did you have? Measles,
I had mumps.
mumps. You had the mumps, and
I had
she
the
had the
mumps.
measles and strange things. She was always having strange illnesses. But anyway, I'm not sure on her.
Okay, I was just curious. I don't recall, but
They did say that car accident that she had, it should have killed her from where
mhm.
her nose hit the dashboard. It should have forced the bones up into her. Oh, I'm going to get too graphic.
Yeah.
The position of her, where her nose hit the dashboard, should have been a life ending moment for her, but it wasn't. Thank goodness.
Yeah. So that's possibly it was hers. I know that I didn't like to talk. Like if I this is my first time talking about it.
Hmm.
So but it was because of what I saw, and I mean I felt like something grabbed my ankle, like a hand went around my ankle, which really
Hmm.
terrified me. And those are things that I repressed because I didn't want to talk about it because again, 5 years old, you know, and that's
Yeah.
probably where I get the I don't want to be touched sensation thing, like don't touch me,
Hmm.
probably stemmed from that because you've and I envisioned it was a bony hand, because I saw the skeleton in my mind's eye. So that was hard to talk about, and I guess part of that was because you hear all these situations where it's lovely, it's peaceful, it's a bright light, it feels good, and I had that at 5. So it was kind of like, well, as a child, I just don't understand. So listeners, if you can tell me what everything meant, that would be great because like I said, it did unlock my clairvoyance more.
Hmm. Well, and not everybody needs a near death experience to open up their abilities
Now,
more.
I've heard where people could be having an argument with like a spouse or something, and something shifts, and all of a sudden they've opened up their abilities. It's I think it's on some situations you're in a situation where you have no control and your mind's going to do what it's supposed to do.
Right?
I could be wrong
When it's
about that.
supposed to do it. Yeah.
When it's supposed to
No,
do
I,
it,
I
yeah.
agree with that. Yeah.
But yeah, so you guys got to be the first to hear about everything that happened. And it happened very quickly.
It was a very scary for us above water too, to watch what
Hmm.
was happening. you know.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, you were definitely terrified when came back out.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember I got out of the water and mom was sitting, and the mom was right there, and I went and crawled in her lap, and we just sat on the shoreline, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to leave mom. It was one of those
Yep.
things. But um, so I was looking at lightning strike survivors, and I was really thought it was amazing that 90% of people that are struck by lightning survive.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. And 70% of the survivors have lasting health problems, which that makes perfect sense. I
Hmm.
mean, lightning's just gone through you. It just went through you.
Exactly. You've got this charged energy that goes through you, and just as that's hot, burning energy going through you, so it is going to cause internal problems as it goes through. It's not just,
Right.
oop, it's through, you're done. It's not like a surface burn. Well, I mean, if you look at a surface burn, You feel it, you get your hand away from the source real quick, and you have the blister, right? Well, that's probably on a bigger scale when it's lightning and it goes in one part and out the other part of your body, because it has to come out. And the path that it takes is where you have long-term ramifications from that event happening. So yeah.
And
And it really depends on where it goes in and where it comes out. Yeah.
right, because it has to come out. It's coming out.
Right. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that men are struck more often than women.
Yeah.
Largely due to outdoor activities, and that the record for being struck multiple times was 7 times held by Roy Sullivan, a U.S. park ranger, and he survived all 7 strikes.
Yes, he did.
Which I don't know what he was doing to get struck 7 times, but that's amazing, but scary at the same time.
Yeah. And I think some people are more lightning rods than other people for lightning, for electrical strikes.
Yes.
I believe that you are energetically charged, and that's what's going to draw the lightning to you. Because if you walk into a room, that I have this a lot, if you come outside into the house, it's summertime, I'm hot, sweaty, I go in somewhere and I touch anything, electrical or whatever, it'll shock me.
Yeah, because you've been absorbing.
I've been absorbing whatever. I always tell people I'm fully charged today, so don't touch me.
It might be shocking.
Because I'll shock you.
Yes. Well, and it's amazing that there are there's huge groups, organizations for survivors of lightning strikes. It's that common. But you can have there's a lot of bad side effects, obviously, from getting struck, but extraordinary cases and positive outcomes of some survivors. They had enhanced cognitive abilities, ding 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 ding, musical or mathematical talents, and personality transformations, and phenomenon sometimes linked to acquired savant syndrome. So, for an example, they used in the article I read this orthopedic surgeon that was struck by lightning, and he developed a passion for piano and composing after he was struck. And then others report increased creativity, altered pain perception, and a heightened sensory awareness. So you can see there's 2 little catches in there that show psychic abilities.
Right.
So again, this could be unlocking, because if it's going to change, if it can change how you view things from being struck, well, then it's going to release some of those blocks that were keeping you. Like, I think if you survive something like that, you don't care what other people think.
True.
Because you nearly died. That you get that shift in how you think, and part of that's from just being struck by lightning. How it's just going to make affect your brain.
Yeah, but let's also think of it this way. If you're having this near-death experience and you are leaving your body or whatever the case may be, you could be meeting a past life, and that persona that past life has permission to come back to you in your body now to finish off your life.
Interesting.
So if you come back with a previous life to finish out that life with, you would take on the traits of the person you were before from a previous life and live that way as that person. So there would be personality change, interest changes, all kinds of different beliefs that you weren't living prior to the near-death experience, but now you are living afterwards because your soul has come back as that person to finish out that life.
I think once you said that soul came back, that made a lot more sense. Because I'm like, your past life. You're like, oh, you meant the soul. Okay. Got it. I was a little slow today.
Sorry.
I made it out safely, though.
But that would explain why there were so many changes that take place in a person after a near-death experience as well. With personality changes and everything, that Maybe you signed up, your life, this life's purpose was to live to this point for this other past life soul experience to take on to finish this life. I don't know. I could be way off base on that, but that's how I perceive what could happen. It would explain a whole lot.
Well, I mean, well, you and I both kind of have the mutual belief that, you signed a contract before coming down, a life contract. And, I believe you can live multiple lives. I mean, not at the same time, obviously, but you know what I'm saying, that you could,
Mhm.
and, come back and until, whatever your life you're supposed to learn, or, that's why we have past life regressions, because we're visiting ourselves in a previous life, whether
Mhm.
we were male or female in a previous life, or whether that experience, how it's affecting us today. And we've gone through that with, on different episodes, talking about how a past life can, bleed through into your current life and give you phobias you don't understand. Like,
Right.
why am I afraid of heights? I've never fallen off a ladder. I've never, had a problem with heights, but why am I afraid of heights?
Yeah,
Because you're afraid of heights.
definitely. That's because I'm short, but
I know. But, there's, like, phobias that don't make much sense. I think people that have experienced near death type experiences, I know I said experiences twice, but I think when you come back, because you're aware of what had just happened, you remember the experience vividly. I mean, I remember my experience vividly, and I was 5.
yes, you mean when you come back from what you've
Yes,
experienced
when you
as the
come
near death.
back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay.
What you
Mhm.
remember
Mhm.
is very vivid.
Very vivid, yeah.
And think about it, how often do you not remember all your dreams?
Right.
But
Yeah.
this experience is vivid, and you remember it years, decades later. So that's telling you that it's not like a dream state.
Exactly.
And it's telling you it was real. What you experienced was real.
They're very adamant that this is what they experienced during that 2-minute time frame, that 7-minute time frame, the documented 10-minute time frame when you were dead.
Hmm.
Plain and simple,
Yeah. And I don't know if you found this in your research, and I didn't do a deep dive research because I kept getting squirreled. So, and like, okay, don't deep dive. But most of the experiences I came across did not have didn't have heaven in it. Wasn't the big biblical thing. You know what I'm saying? It pertained, well, the ones I found pertained to different things that were actually going on in that person's life. Like their beliefs.
Yeah.
And some were just out there like mine, you know.
Yeah. There were several that I found that were extremely, extremely detailed in what they went through.
Yeah.
They were more like they were being taken on a tour of what happens after death, what to expect. So they were taken to different parts of their afterlife, or how it is for them to recognize what it is they're going to be going through or whatever. There were some though that did go more towards a religious belief, but a lot of them were the ones that I found the most interesting. The majority of the people that experience a near-death experience, or that go through a near-death experience, they are in a black tunnel, go to the light, someone meets them on the way, tells them it's not their time, and then they go back. But there's others that don't even experience that part of it, the tunnel, the light. They are just immediately in a place they've never seen before. And it's just so overwhelming.
I mean, I was just finding things that, especially when it pertained to cardiac arrests, like one guy, he was playing hockey, and this man collapsed, and his friend, who was a cardiologist, was playing for the opposite team, immediately started CPR on him. But the man found himself, and he remembered vividly. It said, like 5 years later, when he was telling the story, he was boarding an airplane that was completely empty. The blue seats were stretched out in front of him. The sun was really bright outside, like a beautiful day. He sat next to the window, and he was looking out on the tarmac. And he was just sitting there waiting, and then he heard his friend who was doing CPR on him. That was the one who was doing CPR. Told him he was on the wrong flight, and he had to go follow him. And he got up and followed him off the plane. And then once he got off the plane, boom, he woke up.
See, that's someone greeting him and sending him back, that it wasn't his time.
That was his friend, though, that came and got him. That was performing
Exactly.
CPR.
Right. But then the question is, did he experience any enhanced abilities when he was done?
Right.
Or
I don't know. Yeah.
is it the ones that are seeing beyond the tunnel or beyond the sitting on a plane waiting for it to take off or an elevator to open, to go up, or whatever the case may be, or down, or whatever, whatever direction that elevator is going to go? Do you experience those types of enhanced abilities after the waiting one and being sent back, or the one where you are introduced to the beyond? Because I really wonder, and how are you going to know? I don't know.
Well, I don't know, because
Interview
like with
people.
my experience was frightening. There was no one there to greet me but a skeleton. You know what I'm saying? There was no, but obviously it wasn't my time. And again, I wasn't to the stage of needing resuscitated. But nothing
Right.
there. Yeah, but there's also a fear factor in there too.
Right. You were, in the scientific part of this, you were terrified by what was happening to you, which put your brain into overdrive. I'm sure you had the adrenaline rush going through you, and that's all chemical changes, brains going, probably electrical charges are happening in your brain because of what's happening to you. Your brain does a whole bunch of things whenever you're in a life or death situation, and you weren't to the brink to where you stopped breathing, you needed oxygen, you needed your heart resuscitated. You didn't make it to the death state, but you made it to the state to where there was enough to charge your brain, change your chemistry in your brain, activate the parts of your brain that controls your claircognizance and your other psychic abilities, and gave them a charge and a boost, and there you are. And there's your fear. And when your adrenaline came down, you knew what you saw, and it terrified you, as it should have. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's so much that happens in that near-death state where you didn't need resuscitation, that your body, your brain, I think, makes a connection and opens up, because we only use 10% of our brain. That's all we use. So that other 90% can be affected by these experiences as they happen to us, whether we need to be resuscitated or we just come to that brink close to it. So that would be terrifying, because I believe your brain was adjusted and opened up, that part of your brain that can receive those images. And that's what you got. Your first one was, unfortunately, was there in a lake, a dark lake, where we know there have been people that have died there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was when your ability was supercharged and became your superpower. So it's unfortunate that was
Yes.
your experience.
Yeah.
But then again, I hate to say it, but I'm glad it was that experience and not the other one where we were, could have lost you,
Yeah. Yeah.
where you may not have gotten off the plane or whatever and came back.
Yeah. And we were rural camping, so it's not like, and that was back in the day where you didn't have cell phones.
Exactly.
So
Such an interesting subject matter. Really interesting.
it is.
Of course, you have to be careful if you go do research on this, because I do feel that there are, the charlatans out there that are just trying to make a buck. They, say they went, they saw this, and it's not true. You know what I mean? I know there's a lot of that out there. They're just there to make a buck. So, you have to keep your mind open to, is this a trustworthy or not? Check with yourself, check with spirit, make certain that's something that you should look at.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, because I read a few and I was just kind of like, no, no. It was just kind of
Yeah.
like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I'm not feeling it. Spirit's saying, don't read that. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'll move on.
Exactly. But it is really interesting because even myself, I don't believe I needed CPR. I don't know if I did or
You
not.
don't
I
know.
wasn't there. And I don't know. I was too young. I know they had oxygen on me. That's all mom really said. And it was really scary. But I think it really depends on how far you are in your moment that you're having as to whether you have the tunnel, whether you have the plane, or if you are brought to a different thing. And I think that if you are brought back to that different place where you didn't even experience these other things beforehand, you are in the spirit world then. You are in the beyond at that point in time, whatever that may be. And to think that you would come back into your body without bringing some of that back with you, I think would be hard to believe that you wouldn't be affected by what it was that beyond, whatever that may be. Look at those that have in ancient history and such that had passed and came back with the ability to heal or see. I mean, you have things in references to that in, like the Bible and stuff in historic places. So, I mean, it would be silly for us to think that that doesn't happen, in my
But
opinion, but
yeah.
what do I know?
Well, we're taught so much what not to believe in and what to believe in as young, as children growing. Whatever your parents believe is basically is what is set forth for you to believe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're brought up in a highly religious environment, that until you get to an age where, you feel that's right or wrong for you, that's what you do. That's your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I think where you can easily have a shift, like especially if you were brought up in one particular lifestyle and then you have a near death experience, and I think you would be more wanting to experience more life.
Yes.
You want to enjoy the moment. You want to enjoy things that, because you life, you almost lost your life. You either had a near death or you died and came back. And I
Mm.
think that could be a huge portion of why someone's personality might change as well, is
Yeah,
because
definitely.
they're aware of what they experienced and they're aware how lucky they are to be alive. And I think that's one of those where it's going to be like, okay, and I can see a big personality change if you by chance were not a nice person, and because some people did have had reported seeing their life flash before their eyes,
Oh, yeah,
you know,
definitely.
and
Hmm.
so if you saw what you didn't like, and now you're back, I could see you're like, oh, I'm not doing that again. No, I'm going forward. This is how I'm going to be. And I could see where that would be a big shift in one's mindset,
Yeah.
because no one likes to have that mirror put in front of them, and this is your life. This is what it was. I think a lot of us, if we had someone come up and say, "Oh, by the way, let me show you your life," how many times are you going to be shocked by maybe something you see that you didn't, because we all have parts of our personalities and stuff that we're not aware of that other people see, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but I think a lot of times it is you choose to not remember it. You choose to lock it away in that tiny corner in the back of your memory so you don't have to remember how you felt at the time. And you know that if you did allow yourself to relive that experience, you would not like the person you were when you did it. So you feel
Hmm.
guilty.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's easier to lock it away and not remember it than to live it and relive it, work through it, and move on. So I think that's why you get those replaying of your life, whenever you experience stuff like that.
Yeah. totally off topic subject. Something that happened to me yesterday, actually. No, the day before yesterday, and I thought this might be something good to share on the podcast, and it's got nothing to do with near death experiences. So Kim, if you want to edit it out, you go for it. But I had people
Never.
over. I had people over to the house. We were celebrating someone's birthday, and one of the guests is always standoffish with me, and I always pick up stuff off her, and I never say anything, because
Yeah.
we've talked about in past episodes, just because you get a hit doesn't mean you make the person aware of it, and especially when I could tell that this person sometimes does not seem to like me
Right.
for no apparent reason, which we talked about that before, with sometimes energies are different, but she's under an influence of her mother that has she doesn't like a lot of people. Her mother doesn't. So she's kind of, been around that environment her whole life, type thing. Well, she comes into my home, and starts dozing through the books I have on this little tiny little. It's a music table, but instead of having stored music there, I have books. And they were books on, my herbal healing, holistic books, random books, some on rocks. And then this bright pink book she gets to, and she picks it up. She goes, "Oh, unleashing your psychic abilities, huh?" She goes, "What are you, psychic?" And Dad is sitting there, this girl's sister is sitting there, and the younger sister, she knew I was psychic because we had talked about it. I'm around her a lot
Mm-hmm.
more, and so we talked about things, and I said, "Well, yeah." And she turned around, and the energy that came off her is the type of thing that we're all afraid of when we admit we're psychic.
Ooh.
Her energy was so bad. It was, "Oh, well, what am I thinking?" And she's giving me this evil look when she's doing it. And I said, "I'm not a mind reader, I'm psychic." And so she pushes out her palms. I said, "I'm not a palmist either." I said, "You may want to research different things." I said, "And I'm not a fortune teller either, so before you ask that question."
Yeah.
I said, "I think you need to research what exactly," because I was just, I could have pushed back, and bless Dad's heart, he goes, "Well, psychics run in our family. It's a family thing." And I'm like, "Good job, Dad. All right. I'd high five you if I was closer, but and I said, "Yeah." I said, "It is a family trait." I said, "Both my sisters are psychic." I said, and I pointed to her sister. She knows. I said, "I figured you would have told her." She goes, "Well, you told me not to tell anybody." I said, "Well, I figured you'd tell your sister." Just kind of joke, But she was just kind of, and luckily my woo-woo books were in another room.
Yeah.
Because Kim and I accumulate books and stuff for research and different things, and then there's things that are personal and things that are research, and I'm not going to get into it with someone that already has a chip on their shoulder for me. But I just wanted to, like, it was bad energy. "Tell me what I'm thinking," and she got real dramatic with it, and she's like staring at me, and the look on her face was not pretty. She's a lovely looking girl, but that look was not pretty, and or young woman, and I'm just like, I don't. So I had a choice. I could do a reading, and she will deny anything I say
Mm-hmm.
as a naysayer, or I can just say, like I said, you just don't. I said, "You just don't understand how this works." And so that's what I told her. I said, "You really don't know how this works, because you really don't know the difference between a psychic." And I point out the different things that she had tried to use towards me, like a palm reader. I said, "Now you can be a psychic and you be a palm reader, but that's not my thing." I said, so
Yeah.
so you don't quite get it. And her sister said, "Well, yeah, Carrie told me the house was haunted, and I had had experiences in the house." And she said, "Well, who's in the house?" And the who's in the house? I said, "Was an older man and an older woman." As the older man likes to hang out on the landing between the steps, and "Well, what'd the woman look like?" I said, "She was very short. She didn't like to talk to me because I'm white." "Well, Grandma so and so was white." I said, "Well, obviously this wasn't her. This is a Native woman." And then I wasn't going to go any further than that, because she's already
Yeah.
assuming she knows who I'm talking about and discrediting it.
Right.
So it was, but that's the situation I think most of us don't like to encounter, or in fear that's what we're going to get that kind of treatment as a psychic.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of us stay in the closet, just because of that particular, and I was so proud of my dad, but it's a family thing. Like, duh, you know, is it in your family too? Kind of thing. It's like, it's a family thing, which is funny. 10 years ago, would Dad have responded that way?
No, I really, well, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know if he would have 10 years ago, because Julie's been
Out of the closet for some time.
for some time,
But
and
he never liked to talk
technically
about
you
it.
have too.
Yeah.
That's right. He didn't like to talk about it. I don't know that he would have talked about it, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, remember, he didn't believe that there was a ghost in the house we grew up in until she made herself known to him.
Exactly.
And then he didn't deny it after that.
Right.
He thought it was, he tried to debunk it, and that failed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's seen enough in that, and we're at a point. I think, we're at a point in our development in our lives that, this is what we are, and I think Dad has seen things that he didn't want to talk about, and he knows there's things that go on, and he's accepted of it, and he believes in us and believes what we see and what happens. So, but this young person, it was just, I could have given her the winning lottery numbers, which of course that's not how it works, but, and she could have won, and it still would have been, I wasn't a psychic.
Yeah. Well, she's not open to anything like that involving
No.
you. Now, whether that's a belief she has with others, I don't know. We can't say that for sure, but
Right.
that is her dealings with you.
So my thing here is, and I want to stress is, if someone puts you on the spot and demands that you show them, you don't owe them anything.
Right.
And when someone kind of demands at you like that, spirit more than likely is going to go, nope, because you can't convince someone who doesn't want to be convinced.
Well, and that's true with anything.
Yeah.
Even if you're religious, you cannot convince other people that that is what you believe. You know what I'm saying? You're not
Right.
going to convert other people into what you believe unless they are accepting of what it is you're putting out there. And she's definitely not going to be accepting of anything you're putting out there. And there's people out there that will never accept
Yeah.
you for who you are.
And that's okay.
Yep.
It's okay. You as a budding psychic or a practicing psychic or whatever your walk in life is, it's okay that people don't like what you're doing or don't believe in what you're doing, because that's not your problem. That's theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a family member who's that way, and that's okay too. That's still their problem, not yours.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, with this near-death experience, I found the different stories I was hearing about, I was even, spirit guides you to where you need to be. I'm just going to put it that way. I don't think that anybody needs a near-death experience to have their abilities. You can develop those on your own. We've gone through that through the whole podcast, but it was so interesting with the stories that I read and listened to on podcasts and such, that the things that how they changed, how they all of a sudden were having these experiences that they never had before in the spiritual or metaphysical world, or whatever the case may be in their abilities. It was really interesting to read about, and I just found it fascinating. I even had one pop up today. It was this person that I decided to follow about ancient archaeology, and she brought up a story that fit with current day. I think the person that it involved passed in, like pre-2020 or whatever, but she was born in 1904 that the story was about. And at 5 years old, she had an incident, a near-death experience that happened to her. She died. They were getting ready to perform funeral rites on her an hour after she passed. And when they went in to get her body, she was sitting on the bed playing with her toys. but she was a totally different person. She kept saying, I want to go back home. And she ended up seeing, they went to a museum and they saw a picture of this old tomb or garden from ancient Egypt. And she says, that's my home. That's when they actually took her to Egypt. She was like, oh, where did the gardens go? They were over here. And they started digging and they found the gardens where the gardens used to be. And she would say, I would remember this is, so she came back as a previous, she was a priestess back in
Mm-hmm.
ancient Egypt.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just really fascinating the different things that happen with stories with these near death experiences. I recommend you guys go out and do some research on them because it was really, really fascinating.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, definitely. I was so glad you brought that up because I was just, stuff was just popping out everywhere. I'm like, well, I could go, the science way with this or just the fascination of it all. And it's things I've thought about before. What amazes me are whenever the people do when they have their near death, they're floating above their body, having the astral projection type thing. It's actually their soul floating above their body, looking down at what's going on in that emergency room or the surgery or after lightning strike, and then boom, back down into their body, just as if you were astral projecting. I just found that fascinating.
And, and astral projecting, like we talked about, is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you astral project in your sleep, and this is something you've been doing, I could see where you would astral project at this point of a near-death experience.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
I could see where you would be hovering about. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Right, right. It's all fascinating.
Yes, it is. All right. Well, did you have anything else on near-death experience you want to add, Kim?
No, it was really, really interesting. And I know I keep saying that, but sometimes whenever Carrie comes up with some of these ideas for the episodes, and some of them just take me over the edge, and I'm in la la land listening to it, I'm like, this is so cool. So,
Well, it's I've been thinking about it for a while, and I think you were thinking about it too.
yes.
Near-death experience, and thought, well, I'm not going to bring it up. And so you wouldn't bring it up, so Spirit had to go a different route.
Yes.
Me bring it up, So I was like, well, I've been thinking. Yeah, I said it. Hey, Kim, what about this near-death experience? I've been thinking about that for months, and I'm like, months?
Yeah.
Okay, you could have brought it up, So.
Oh, well.
But that's affirmation. Then when I finally get around to it, I guess, like we could
Yeah.
just do that episode.
We weren't ready for it yet.
I guess not. It took a lot for me to really discuss it. I guess it doesn't make sense to someone that's never experienced something like that, but I didn't want to talk about it, because I didn't see the bright light. I didn't see, I didn't see, anything that was lovely. And I think part of me felt like, well, as what does that mean? Because we were brought up a little more religious.
Exactly. That's where I was going to go. We were brought up religious. It was pounded into our heads about, hell and heaven. And, you have to be good. If you're not, you're going to go there. And with you being a 5-year-old, seeing this horrific scene that you've never been exposed to, your first thought is, that's what it was. You've done bad at 5 years old, and that's where you're going to go.
And what bad could you do at 5? I wasn't knocking over banks.
Yeah, yeah, and you didn't know or understand that you could talk about it.
Yeah.
I think Mom probably would have explained it to you in an age appropriate manner of what you experienced, maybe not as a psychic experience, just as a terrifying experience,
Yeah.
but
And I didn't talk about it for long. I mean, I was even probably in my 30s, and someone wanted to go skiing. And I was like, I'll go on the boat, but I'm not going to ski. And they were like, oh, no. And they kind of like were kind of shaming me to get in the water. And I did. And, the water was, it was dark. It was dark water. It was a lake, big lake.
Yeah.
And I tried to stand up. Trust me, I tried to stand up on those skis because I wanted out of the water, and I couldn't do it. And then when they came back around, and I was shivering so bad that they had to pull me onto the boat.
Yeah.
And the person said, they were like, the person that was trying to shame me goes, I am really sorry. You said you were afraid of water, and I didn't really. I didn't. I thought you were just joking. But
Or exaggerating, yeah.
Yeah, or and then that's when I told that particular person. So, I nearly drowned as a child, and they're like, "Oh my gosh," But it's like, but you wouldn't. I didn't want to share that information because I didn't want them to ask questions.
Right. Yeah.
So, if any of our listeners have had near-death experiences, and you feel like sharing them, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So, message us on Facebook, Instagram, or email us. And it would be very interesting to see what other people have experienced or what your thoughts are on this particular episode. Or if you have a suggestion for another episode.
Yeah, we're all ears on that too.
Yes, we are. So, Kim, if you don't have anything else, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
Thank you for stopping by and hearing us again, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, listeners. Bye.
Bye. May your light shine bright.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Psychic Bent. If you enjoyed Psychic Bent, please like, follow, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We can be reached on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast. Our email address is psychicbent1@gmail.com. May your light shine bright.